Hi. So a little bit about this trip that we took to Italy. Here's the pre-show. The day before we left, we kicked it off with a nice little trip to Olive Garden to make it quite authentic. But my dad and I went to Rome and Florence over Thanksgiving 2017. Actually flew overnight from DFW into Heathrow, landed in Rome, had our first day in Rome. So some of the graffiti that we had seen while touring around Rome. Obviously some really good food. This is one of our first dinners there. Some really nice cheese, really flaky bread, and then I had the veal brisket. Here's the remains of that. And Dad had this really nice lasagna that they only made one day a week. The travel itself was really cool. A little bit tired on the first day getting in, but it was nice. So the very first day, obviously, when you go to Rome, you've got to start off with a trip to the Colosseum. So here's this beautiful thing with so much construction going around, obviously very crowded throughout the day because of the tours and stuff. Here's Old Man outside the Colosseum. But the place is incredible, right? It's huge, so much to see, so much history and stuff to learn on the tours that you would go on inside of the Colosseum. So here's us near the floor. Obviously the thing's been gutted. These are all the valleys and the stuff underneath where the real action took place with the animals and the gladiators and the slaves that they had working there, and the whole floor was comprised of trapdoors and sand so it would absorb a lot of the blood. The place is obviously a phenomenal piece of architecture. Here's an example of one of the doors that you could put an animal into and then pull it up on that pulley and let it go on the floor and let people fight against whatever it may have been. It was just an amazing tour, really good group of tour guides that were set up that helped us out all throughout our spaces in Rome and then later on in Florence. But just some really, really cool stuff to see. The flight itself over there was fun. It was overnight on American Airlines. Had a nice little business class seat, which was cool. A bunch of drinks, really good food. We were able to sleep really nicely. Heathrow was interesting, having never been overseas to go into London that first morning and just experience what that was like even for a few hours. You want to say hi, Miles? Say hi. Hi. So here's us up on the second deck of the Colosseum. Found a bird. A lot of really cool birds and stuff running around. But yeah, here you can see what it would have looked like from the top if you had the really cheap seats that were given away to a lot of the people, and then a view outside of the Colosseum with a lot of people panhandling stuff. You can see like there's several different layers as part of it. Then we went over to the Roman Forum, which was nearby. Here's a look at that. And a lot of construction going on, so this was a palace. I don't recall whose palace it actually was, but you can see some of the marble floors that were still remaining, and a lot of people that are doing like all the good reconstructive work to maintain the floors and clean up those tiles. Yeah, so like a mini version of the Colosseum, if you will, down there on the ground underneath that palace floor. Here's a guy from Daft Punk telling you not to take any pictures, and here are the people that are always doing the reconstruction work all along the way. But just interesting. Obviously the architecture is really cool. Here's a bird, another one. I got several photos of this dumb bird. Here's Rome from some place up at the top near the Forum, and there's a bit of like a mall and a little town space there, and some of the signage. And then obviously if you're in there, you've got to eat pizza. So pizza al forno, or pizza all'Italia, I say, where they make it in sheets and cut it up with scissors. Old Man grabbing some pizza, middle of the day. I thought this was funny, this movie poster with the guy, one of the Baldwin brothers, and what was that, Mr. Blonde from Reservoir Dogs in there. Sant Eustachio, great coffee, some of the best coffee in the world. They're really well known for it. We stopped into Sant Eustachio and grabbed, I think it was a couple cappuccinos or something just on the way, some spoons. You order at one side of the place and then bring your ticket to the other side, and that's how you place your order. It confused a lot of people that hadn't been there before. Here's the second part of our tour in Rome. That same afternoon, some of the back alleyways. This dome inside of here, that's all held up. Like the way that they figured out their architecture back in the day was absolutely incredible to see the things that they could figure out on their own, and the fountains, and I mean just the place is just gorgeous. Obviously there's a lot of people running around due to tourism always being so high, but it was some of the tours that we took were amazing just to see some of the sights. Here's the Trevi Fountain, which is really famous and really crowded and really well known for pickpockets hanging out around the area too. So you really need to guard your stuff while you're taking your photos. We of course threw a coin in over our shoulder, which apparently will assure you safe travels for the next time you return back to Rome. And here's the Roman City Hall, and these are the Spanish Steps down at the bottom. So then we went over to Trastevere that night and found one. This is a store full of American food. Apparently I'll just eat garbage nonstop. This is Roscioli's Bakery. He's a really well-known baker, or it's a family of bakers. And then we had dinner at the Salumeria Roscioli. So we've got some burrata with some black truffle pearls and prosciutto, some really good cacio e pepe coming up, and the end to a really nice first day in Rome. It was amazing. Second day. This was interesting. So here's the look at the steps inside of the Vatican. That morning, when we were set to go to the Vatican, we both slept thin. Our alarms, I think our phones were on mute just because we wanted a little peace and quiet, first night of rest. So we woke up with about 15 minutes to spare, threw our clothes on, walked about 1.5 miles to find our tour guide, got there within like 2 minutes before the tour started to actually walk through the Vatican. So that was very adventurous. First full morning heading over to the Vatican. A reminder to not turn the mute off on your phones any longer if you actually have alarms that you need to get to. But the museums over there were, again, just incredible. So many rooms, and each room was like 50 yards long, just completely packed with this ornate artwork. And these, so the blue was a big color of it, blue and gold. All the frescoes, all the work done on the ceilings. Some of the statues, which were broken apart, as you can see by the lines, and they kind of pieced them back together. Those aren't actual shadows. It's painted that way. It's a style of painting where it looks like it's three-dimensional. So you had entire hallways of this where it looked like it was sticking out, but all of that is actually flat. Some amazing tapestries. This hippie with his hair. And then stuff like this, right? This is the maps room. So just long and ornate and beautiful, all the tapestries on the wall and the frescoes and the artwork that they had collected in the Vatican museums, which are, there seems like there's dozens of them over there, and some of the artwork you see inside of there is some of the really famous pieces, obviously. Things like the Sistine Chapel we went into, but you couldn't take any pictures while you were there, so the best we could do is remember it, and the best I can recall is it was absolutely one of the most amazing places I've ever visited in my entire life, and I can't wait to go back and see it again. But here is St. Peter's Basilica, just massive with those archways and the gold and the artwork and the people there visiting. There was actually, I think, a cardinal or something had passed away a few days before, and they were actually holding a service for him right over there behind this whole scene. The place, I've never been anything that big. It was incredible just to see the size of it. So we had a food tour in Trastevere one night. So here's us with our tour guide and another family we met up with. I believe they were from California. The first place we stopped off at was a nice little cheese shop. So we had some samples of some different cheese that was made locally and visited the kitchen of the family that was running the store. Here's some pictures from the family's refrigerator back there with their family and kids growing up, the scene from behind. We went over to this other shop. This is Maria. And they'll do, I forget what it's called, but it's like a fried cod. It's really hot, almost like a fish and chips type thing. She serves it up all day long and has for years. Went to another shop and had just some local meats and some bread and some really good wine. So today's special is panini on a porchetta, or porchetta on panini. Here's the pig we probably ate. And then, of course, no food tour would be complete without even more pizza. So we had more Pizza Italia. There's the woman that ran the pizza shop while we were out that night. And then, of course, any food tour will be capped off really well with some nice, fresh gelato. And this is the guy that was responsible for making that gelato all day long. So then we went up to Florence. We took a train to Florence, a high-speed train, about 1.5 hours. That was awesome. Very smooth, very well done. Nice little service going up there. We climbed to the top of the Duomo. So there's a dome at the top that is an architectural marvel, because at the time they supposedly shouldn't have had the technology to really solve a dome within a dome that wouldn't collapse upon itself, and it's hundreds of feet up in the air. But we actually paid to climb to the very top of that dome and look out. So here's some of the artwork, the apex there at the top of the domes. It's a dome inside of a dome. You can go to the top of Florence. You can look all around the entire city. I hate heights, so I was a little bit nervous getting up there and looking around, but I enjoyed it once I actually got up there. That's Giotto's bell tower just across the way. But the dome is amazing. Again, not for me because a little bit scared of heights, but it was quite an adventure getting up there. You can see the bell tower and the tiny people at the top looking out over all of Florence. And then once you go up, of course, you need to head back down. What was nice in Florence is we had a really cool Airbnb, a great family that was in good communications with us, had a nice little loft. I think it was Ventisei Via da Camaldoli, if I remember the name of the road properly. But here's the view. Nice little neighborhood, very quiet, very safe. Everything in Florence was within walking distance, so that was awesome. We could go across the bridge pretty easily, about a mile or so to get to things. But it was a really cute little Airbnb. There was the loft I slept in upstairs. And then this is, I think, is it the baptistry? And then, of course, we had to go Academia and see the statue of David, which was apparently carved out of a really poor piece of marble. And Michelangelo took on the challenge and made this wonderful piece of art. You got the detail, like the veins in his hands. And it's massive. It's like 17 feet tall, and it's absolutely perfect. But yeah, here's the actual statue of David that we were able to see and got a really nice lesson while we were out there. Again, some phenomenal architecture all around Florence, and I think actually between the two, I come to like Florence even more than Rome for whatever reason. It was just a little smaller, a little bit quaint. Here's Dante. And then Lampredotto, I'll get back to this in a little bit, but that was a specialty street food. Here's this nice pig out there where apparently I think you feed it coins and it wishes you good luck. Some more of the statues outside of the Uffizi Gallery. We went back inside of that the dome. Here's the Uffizi Gallery from the outside. Just so much. Here's Ponte Vecchio, which is a very famous bridge. And dinner that night was at Osteria del Cinghiale, which is wild boar, Cinghiale Banco. Had some awesome food over there. Ate some wild boar. Then the next morning we joined up with this group that did Vespa tours, or these little mini cars like these Fiats. But Dad and I were the only ones that were adventurous enough to rent Vespas and drive around on Vespas, which neither one of us had driven before. So here's the thing: when your tour guide asks you if you've ridden on a Vespa before, you should probably say no so you can get a better lesson. Don't say yes like we did because we were kind of thrown into it. So it was a lot of fun driving through the Tuscan countryside on these Vespas. Almost got hit by a bus. It was a little bit scary, but it was awesome at the same time once we got the hang of it. And it just felt awesome and free to be outside in that sort of thing and see that countryside while riding on those Vespas as we did. And then we wound up at a B&B in the area, went in for a nice little like private lunch with the two of us. And then we had a cooking class that night where we learned to make, I completely forget. We made like bruschetta, and then we made something with mascarpone cheese, and then we had some wine. So very simple. And then we made risotto as well, which took a little bit of time, but fun little cooking class tonight. That was a great day between the Vespa tour and the cooking class and just seeing that countryside out there. And then the last day we had to go back home, so we went to the Central Market in Florence. This is a guy that apparently goes around town and sabotages street signs. Had a beer first thing in the morning. They had this market that had all these little stations that were set up, and you could try a little bit of everything. And of course, if you're there, here's these dumplings that they made. Of course, I'm going to have a coffee. I drank so much coffee and ate so much pizza over there. Another look at the market. And so coming back to Lampredotto, which is like tripe. It's the fourth stomach of a cow that's been boiled and chopped up with spices, and it sounds gross. Let me tell you, it is absolutely delicious. I would like to try to find another one. Obviously, you have a hard time finding that in the United States. But, all in all, I thought it was an amazing trip. It's something I've wanted to do all my life, being 39 years of age. Same thing with my dad. Had never been overseas, and it was a very quick trip. It was about 5 days there. But I'm already in my head thinking about plans to eventually go back and bring the family with us, so everybody can go in there and experience Italy the same way that we did. Again, I can't wait to get back to see Florence. Now, familiar with the area, so many wonderful things to see, and it certainly was a trip of a lifetime, and I'm glad I was able to do it. I'm glad my dad was able to come along with me, and for you, for sitting through this 14 and a half minutes of these very quick ramblings about an awesome trip over to Italy. So I hope you had fun listening to me. So, ciao, ciao!